Okay, so welcome to the Unit 6, Lesson 6 video on direct, inverse, and joint variation. Our objectives for today are to identify direct and inverse variation relationships. Given specific values, find the constants of variation, and apply the concepts of inverse and joint variation to solve word problems. All right, so direct variation, we'll start off here. We're just trying to identify the relationships. All right, so there's three different relationships: direct, inverse, and joint. And you kind of combine some of those, which we'll see later. But the basic idea is that a direct variation will look like this. Y equals kx. All right, an inverse variation would be y equals k divided by x. And a joint variation would be y equals k times x times z. Right? So direct variation is just a simple multiplication times the constant. Inverse is when you divide the constant by a variable. And joint is when you multiply the constant times multiple variables. Right? And we'll notice this whole k here. You notice k is in every one, right? You see this k here, you see it here, and you see it here. So the way we read each of these, right, is y varies directly with x. You could say y varies inversely with x. You could say y varies jointly with x. But again, so that's how you would kind of read these, right? When you see these statements, these would be the equations that you're trying to set up. But you notice that in none of these descriptions here, right, this description, there's no k. K is never mentioned. But you have to know that k will always come after the equal sign, right? We're never going to talk about it, but we're always going to put it right after the equal sign. All right, so keep that in mind, that we won't describe it, we won't talk about it, but you got to know it's there. All right. So when we're looking at this, identifying direct and inverse variation from a table, if you're given a table of values and they want to know, is this inverse or direct variation? Well, remember, direct is y equals kx, inverse is y equals k over x. So the constant of variation should be the same for each one. So you could say -6 equals k times -2. So if we solve for that, right, we get k equals 3. 6 equals k times 2. So again, this would be k equals 3. So these are the same. That's a good start, but it has to work for every single one. So you got to make sure you're checking all of these. K divided by 3, or 9 divided by 3, you get k equals 3 again. And one last one. So when I tried the direct variation equation, it worked every time. So since that worked, I can say, yes, this is direct variation. All right? So it could be direct, it could be inverse, or it could be neither. So if I tried direct and it didn't work, I would then try inverse. If inverse wasn't correct, if I didn't get the same thing every single time, then I would say neither, right? So let's try this one, right? Let's try direct. So 12 equals k times 2. So k would equal 6. 8 equals k times 3. well, k would equal 8 over 3. Well, those aren't the same. As soon as you get one that stops, it's not direct. This is the direct, and it's not. So let's check inverse. All right, so inverse is y equals k divided by. So in this case, to get k by itself, I'd multiply by 2. So k would have to be 24. All right. 8 equals k over 3. So times 3, k equals 24. So again, we're on a right track, but you got to keep going. 6 equals k over 4. So k equals 24. Good shape. 8 over 3 equals k over 9. So if I multiply that times 9, I get k equals 24. They all worked, so this is an inverse variation. Again, if one of those was different, I'd cross it off also and I'd say neither. All right? Now your joint variation is not an option on an XY coordinate table, so you don't need to worry about joint for these, just direct and inverse. All right? Oh wait, did we miss something? Oh, so there's 3 practice problems here. Go ahead and check these to see if it's direct or inverse. So pause the video, give these 3 problems a try, and then we'll come back and we'll check to see if you got it right. So pause the video for now. Okay, so hopefully you worked these out on your own and you saw that the first one should be direct, the middle one is neither, and the last one is inverse. So look back through your work and make sure you did it correctly if you were able to get these same answers, and if not, then figure out where your mistake was and let us know if you need help figuring that out. All right? So now we'll get to the word problems, right? Trying to find finding the constants of variation. So we want to substitute the values in for the appropriate formula and solve for k, which is pretty much what we did, right? It's what we've been doing with the table, right? But here it's going to tell me which formula to use. It says the variables x and y vary inversely. Okay, so the neat thing about inverse variation is it doesn't matter if they give it to you this way. It doesn't matter which way you put it, because x equals k over y and y equals k over x are the same thing, right? And I can prove it to you. So if x is 2, y is 4. So 2 equals k over 4. So in this case, I would get, times 4 on both sides. 8 equals k. Well, if I switched it to this one, right? We're going to switch colors here. Right, so this would be the purple. If I said that 4 equals k over 2, well, I times 2 on both sides, and I get k equals 8. So you may sometimes see the expression for inverse variation this way, and don't let that trip you up. It doesn't matter if it's inverse variation as long as there's nothing else going on, right? If it varies directly with something and then inversely, it won't be written this way. This would be the only time you see it like this, and then it doesn't matter which one you put first. All right? So my equation, once you find k, you could write x equals 8 over y, or you could say y equals 8 over x, because it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. So go ahead and try this one and pause the video, give it a try. So pause the video now. Okay, this one might have been a little bit tricky if you set up y equals k over x, because you saw the inverse variation, because you're dividing by 1/2. But again, dividing by 1/2, if I multiply by 1/2, they'll cancel out, right? So if I cancel that out, it will work. right? So 3 equals k. All right? Let's try this next example here. The variable z varies jointly with a and b and inversely with x. So this is a more complicated type of question. But again, you're just going to go straight through it and just write what it says. It says z varies, and as soon as I hear that varies, I'm putting a k right after x. Or, sorry, the k right after the equal sign. So z equals k. It says jointly, so I know I'm going to be multiplying by a couple things, and it says a and b. As soon as I see this word inversely, that tells me division. And then what comes after that would be the x. So there's my setup. Z varies jointly with a and b and inversely with x. So remember, whenever you see the word varies, equal sign k. Jointly is multiplying by more than one thing. Inversely is dividing. Okay, so now let's figure out what we have. It says z is 10. Don't know k. But a is 5 and b is 6 and x is 3. Okay, so plug that in. Let's solve this. I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. So 30 equals k times 30. All right, so divide by 30. And k equals 1. So I can now rewrite the equation. Z equals 1 a b over x. There's the equation. Write an equation that relates. That's the equation. Now it says to find z. So z equals 1 times 9 times 5 divided by 15. So z equals 45 over 15, which is 3. And that's the second answer, right? So they wanted this is part 1. This is part 2. But I had to find the k first to be able to write part number 1. All right. So go ahead and pause the video. Try this last example. Remember, just write it exactly the way you read it, and then try to find a k, write your equation, and then solve. All right. Pause the video and give it a try. Okay, so here you have the 3 solutions to this problem. Hopefully you didn't have any trouble with this. So next class will be a few problems like these word problems here, and then we're going to give you the review guide. So we'll be reviewing the entire unit and getting ready for the test. So make sure you come prepared. Let us know if you have any questions. That's the end of the video.